each of the artists introduce themselves and say a little something about their music and what moves them. So, Mr. MacFarland, why don't we begin with you? Just a short introduction.
Yeah, the name is James MacFarland. I came to Harrisburg. I had a tryout with the Baltimore Coast. I was a baller. I came to Harrisburg and got hurt, and they sent me to the farm club. And I was on the farm club. I got a job teaching and coaching. And I retired from the system. I did 31 years and what have you. But my influence was, I came up in an era where they had rock and roll. I was a rock and roll guy back in the 60s. But I also had an influence with Southern gospel. My uncle, he had a local group, and they called themselves the Columbia Jubilees. And they would come on every Sunday. And I used to go to the rehearsals and listen in, but I never thought that I would be singing. I was always pursuing sports, right? But like God had another plan for me. So that's how I got to Harrisburg. I was a football player and what have you. And I always enjoyed singing. You know, never thought I would be singing, but you know, sometimes God has things for you that you don't realize. And I had a talent for it, but didn't realize it that much. But I enjoyed singing, mostly in the shower and what have you.
Right. I think we all do a little singing in the shower, right?
Yes.
That's great.
But you know, I joined the Spiritual Messengers. We had a group. It was 16 of us, and we called ourselves an ensemble. And we used to wear white tux and go around and sing at different churches and what have you. And we had 16. About, I guess, a couple of years, some of the guys started to drop out, and we wind up with seven people in the group. And one of the brothers, like Wayne, said, "Hey, I used to play bass," and another brother, Barrett, said, "I used to play lead guitar," and we had a drummer, Jacoby Jackson, who was the nephew of Minister Jackson. And so we formed our group. We were first called a Spirit-Filled Ministry, and we started to sing and go around, and you know, and we started to make our own songs and what have you. And later on, we changed our name to Spiritual Messengers, what have you. But
well, let's let the other two artists introduce themselves, and then we'll come back to you and talk a little bit about the songs that you've chosen for us to listen to tonight. Susan, how about you? Susan Leviton, why don't you share a brief intro of yourself? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, I believe.
I'm Susan Leviton. I am an interpreter and a teacher of traditional Yiddish folk arts, visual arts, and singing. My mother said I was born and inoculated with a Victrola needle, so I was always singing from as soon as I could make a sound. And I always thought I was going to be a folk singer, and I didn't realize that my folk was going to be in another language, the language of the grandparents I never met, and language that my parents used to speak to each other when they didn't want us to understand. But coming to Harrisburg, I became involved with the Old World Folk Band and started to dip into the treasure trove of Yiddish folk music, mostly a cappella songs, and the wonderful, relevant, and magnificent music that is part of my heritage.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll hear more from Susan in a minute. Mike Furjanic, how about you? Why don't you give us a quick introduction to who you are?
My name is Mike Furjanic. I am originally from this area. I grew up on the hill above a little town called Steelton, which was a very ethnic community, beginning with the first immigrants to the area. The town was founded in 1800. In the late 1890s, my ancestors showed up as part of the Southern European immigration. My background is Croatian. The earliest settlers here were English, then Irish, then German, and then the Southern Europeans came. The Southern Europeans lived in two regions in Stilton, two sides of town is how we would call it. My parents were from what you call the lower end, which is across the canal from the mill. They were part of the ethnic community down there. They learned the music, the folk culture. I mean, my mom grew up in a house that was basically a Croatian household. Her dad was off the boat. We're part of these traditions that we're still trying to hang on to them a little bit. Musically, I started playing a violin when I was little. We'll talk about instrumentation a little bit later. My mom, we're going to talk about her a little bit. She taught me to play the violin. And like Jim Mack says, I was into sports when I was young. They forced you to learn an instrument, but as you get older, your mind develops a little more. You get a little more appreciation for it. And, when I was just about done with college, I realized something was missing and dug back into playing.
That's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the song that you chose from your mom too. So I love the intergenerational or the passing on of tradition. It's really, really wonderful. So we began our session tonight with a rendition of Old Rugged Cross by the Spiritual Messengers, Warriors for God. This is a song that is known throughout the world, probably both in Christian and non-Christian contexts. And so, Mr. MacFarland, let's begin with you. You are a lead singer with the Spiritual Messengers, Warriors for God, and you, as I understand it, have an R&B background, but you've also been with the Spiritual Messengers for some 30 years, and this is your song. This is a song you chose. So can you talk a little bit about what this song means for you?
Yeah, well, basically, I look at it as a faith-based song. And when I say faith-based, I mean word song, because we know that words can heal. Words can change people's feelings. It can change people's mind, etc. And when I say word-based, that's what we mean. But basically, faith is the key to pretty much all of it. And when you start talking about faith, you got different levels of faith. And also in faith, if you was putting it all together, the ingredients in faith, what I call the 5 T's. You got to have truth. You can't have faith if you don't have truth. You got to have trust. You can't have faith if you don't have trust. We can trust in God's word, right? You're going to have toil. Toil means you're going to be out there working to show that you're approved. And the other one is you're going to have trials. You're going to have trials. So trials and tribulations. And the last one is torture. Sometimes God allows torture. But faith is basically what we are trying to do, trying to change someone's life, someone that listened to some of our songs and change their mind, and say, hey, I give it all to God. I give it up to him. So that's what we're trying to do, So Old Rugged Cross is a song that was written by, I believe it was George Bernard, back in the 1870, I believe it was. And the young man, he was from Youngstown, Ohio. And later on, he moved to Iowa, and he became a Methodist preacher. And one of his favorite verses was John 3:16. And every time, he was a preacher, say every time that he would read that verse, he would get a vision of a cross. And he said the words didn't come to him at first. He said the only thing that came to him was, I will cling to the old rugged cross. So he kept at it. And he said one day a melody came to him and he started to hum that melody. And as he was humming, he ran to the kitchen table and started to write the words down. He said, a spiritual experience because everything, the words just fell into place. Everything was in place. He said he was so excited. He called his wife and he said, "Wife, come in." And she came in and she was always a good critic for him because he was a songwriter. So he asked her how did she like it, and she loved it. And so he got more excited. So at that particular time, the only thing he needed was the chords. So it was a gentleman by the name of Charles Gabriel, I believe it was Charles Gabriel, who was a composer, and he did all of the. So he sent it to Charles Gabriel to put the chords to it, and Gabriel put the chords to it, sent it back to him, and the rest is history. A spiritual song that pretty much, if it's not number one, I would think it's number two in America. I know Amazing Grace is in there also, but Old Rugged Cross is right there also. I think it's in the top 5 anyway. But that's my song that, I chose. I like that. It touches my heart, it's truth in it. You got truth. You can trust it. And that's pretty much it.
That's beautiful. So I didn't realize why there were 2 names associated with it. Thank you for that. Research, that extra research. And, and I think it's also interesting because you all in Spiritual Messengers, you play some traditional pieces, but you also write a lot of your own music, right? So, and I think you have a second tune for us to share that is a song that you all wrote. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, somewhere down the line. Yeah.
Almost screen.
Do you want to?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you want us to listen to it first, or do you want to play it and then? Do you want to play it or talk about it?
Quick synopsis of it. Somewhere down the line, we're a group that we come up with our own songs and what have you. And then some of the ways that we came up with our songs was that we would get into a session, we just start jamming, and somebody would start singing, or I was singing, whoever, and Wayne said, hey, let's keep that. And the next thing we had a song, and so I was telling Wayne, we were working on it. I said, man, we need to have something with a little bit more Southern gospel flavor to it. I said, my Southern upbringing, I was around gospel singing. So I said, let's do something a little bit more, Southern gospel. So I went home. I think I had to go home for whatever. And about a week or so, came back, and the brothers had started to work on the song, right? And they said, Mac, this is for you, man. And I was like, what? So after somewhere down the line, we're going to need the Lord, right? And that wound up being the name of our song. Somewhere down the line, you'll need the Lord.
That's great.
So that's how we got it. And everybody contribute to the verses. Everybody contribute. That's where we do it.
Yeah. So let's hear a little bit of it. Jess, can you play a little bit of it for us?
Get them hands together out there, y'all. Come on now. I don't care who you are, where you been, where you trying to go, or where you think you want to go. But I guarantee you one thing, in this life, somewhere down the line, gonna need the Lord. I'm gonna go away and tell you about it. One day I was walking, I was walking down that old dusty road. I was not looking for no trouble. gotta help me out. Somewhere down the line, you're gonna meet the Lord. Oh yeah, somewhere down the line, Lord have mercy, you're gonna meet the Lord. Help me somebody somewhere down the line. Oh yeah, you're gonna meet the Lord. Oh yeah, somewhere. Oh yeah, down the line. Yeah.
All right.
All right, so that's a bit of it. That's great. And I can't imagine any of you in the audience could sit still during that song. I mean, so it's a song that gets you moving, gets you dancing even, right? And so I know that you talk about how sometimes that's the purpose of song, is to actually get people up and dancing together. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, actually, that's also one of our purposes, to get people to get involved and get up and dance and what have you. I remember coming up as a kid, they had this church, we used to call it Sanctified. And everybody in the church would have an instrument and they would be dancing. Boy, I would stick my head in the door. I'm like, oh my God. So, I had that influence also, we used to call it Sanctified, but everybody seemed to have a good time. A lot of people think that you can't have a good time in the Lord, but you can. And we try to do that. And one of the things we point out, when David got the Ark of the Covenants back, right? What did he do? He was dancing, right? He danced so hard till he came out of his clothes, right? So, it's all right to dance and have a good time. So that's what we try to do. We try to dance and create the music and try to touch people's heart, try to change their minds and hope that they'll give their life to Christ. And that's basically what we're all about, having a good time and dancing and singing and praising the Lord.
So really, in this case, song is about facilitating faith and facilitating one's practice of faith, and in very powerful ways, but also in very kind of free-spirited even, or I'm missing the word, but the difference between Old Rugged Cross, which is this sort of very emotive, powerful tune, and then Somewhere Down the Line that gets you I liked what you said about getting people involved, getting people
definitely
active and involved.
We have a song called A Dip, right? And that is a song that pretty much everybody like. We get everybody standing up and we get them in line, put their hand on the shoulders, and we dip around the room, all around the room. And that everybody seems to love that, So that's one of our favorite things that we do. We usually do it at the end of the show. Stand everybody up, stretch your legs. Now that we got you up, so we're gonna do the dip. We're gonna dip for Jesus, right? And we stand up, we dip, and then we all get in line and go around the building, what have you, and everybody seems to enjoy it. So we kept it as a part of our,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. And it feels to me like that's also really promoting a sense of community. Yes. Right? You get people up and dancing together. They're by that very nature. And we'll talk about dancing a little bit more when we meet and talk with Mike, but Furjanic. But that dancing, I think, also reinforces that sense of belonging in that community. So that's wonderful. So there is one question in the chat that I want to, because I think it's a fairly quick one. Did the song Somewhere Down the Line borrow from, or was it influenced by an old rock and roll song called Searchin'?
Yeah, that verse, right? I don't know why it just came out that way. But the old song, I think, what was that? I forget the name of that group. But
I don't know, Marilyn, if you know. But
I think might have been a teenager or probably in grade school somewhere when that came out.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it was just part of the song, right?
Yeah.
It just
Well, and I
came.
think that sort of speaks to the sort of instrumental power of song, where certain rhythms, they just have meaning for people. So let's move on to Susan, but before we go, I just want to very quickly mention that the Spiritual Messengers do have one CD out already, and they are, the co-stars. Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
Yeah, the coach.
Yeah, so they have one CD out already, and they're working on a second CD, which will be, I think, almost all originals. Maybe they can talk about that at the end. And I think that our tech crew, lovely Jess, is going to post in the chat the link to the Facebook page for Spiritual Messengers if you're interested in ordering a copy of their CD. So let's move on now to Susan Leviton. Susan thank you so much, Brother Mac. I appreciate you sharing your stories with us.
Thank you.
Susan is well known for her extensive research into the history and context of Yiddish music, and in particular women's music. She sang for years, as she said, with the Old World Folk Band, but also does lectures and workshops that are really grounded in this very in-depth and passionate kind of research that you do, I think, Susan. And she does have some CDs to her name. We'll post her website in the chat toward the end. But Susan, you've chosen a couple of songs to share with us. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you chose and why?
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. So I chose two short songs from one of my recordings, and I chose them because they really go hand in hand. When we first talked about this program tonight, we talked about the way that songs connect with community and the way that songs connect within ourselves. And so it occurred to me that these two songs, both of which I love dearly, resonate very differently to me. First, I should say that I do not sing anymore in English. And because I sing in a language primarily, and other languages as well, that many of my audience members don't understand, I find the power of the poetry and the need to interpret and communicate that is really, really critical. So first, I fall in love with the words to songs before I even find out what they sound like. And then I fall in love with the song, the melody of the song. So the first one I'd like to share with you was written by Avram Rezin. Avram Rezin was a Russian immigrant to America, and he was from a family of linguists. His father, his brother, his sister, and he were all published linguists. He came to this country and became, in New York City, a prolific poet and prose writer, and published in multiple daily papers just about every day. His poetry was very down to earth. He really spoke in the language of the people, and really raised people up and gave them sometimes in his poetry enough of a connection to their own lives that they felt empathy, and also had a little bit of beauty that they could sing among themselves and in community. So this first song is called Das Neue Lied, the new song. And this song has an interesting history because we think of people coming from Europe to America, and we think of it as a one-way direction. But actually, songs like this show us that there was a marvelous back and forth, that with recorded music, with records, and people communicating and traveling back and forth, the songs really crisscrossed the Atlantic Ocean. So this song, the new song is the title, was written in America, and it was very, very popular in the first half of the 20th century, written early in the century, but it was sung in schools in the early part of the century, and it was also sung in Europe, and most touchingly, most poignantly, it was sung by children's chorus in the ghetto in Vilna during the Second World War. And the partisan fighters who were fighting desperately to liberate their people and to give people hope found the song echoing over the garrets of the ghetto while they gathered. And they themselves, the partisans, were poets and teachers and historians, and they were taking great strength from the voices of children. And think about it today. We look to our young people for the same kind of hope. We look to the Greta Thunbergs of the world. We look to people who are saving water. We look to people who are working for climate issues and for social justice issues, and we get our strength from the youth. So I'd like to share this song with that in mind, and hope you enjoy it. I will be showing you the translations as we go. So, das neue Lied.
Soll wie weit noch sein die Zeit von Liebe und von Scholem, doch kommen wird, sie friert sich spät, die Zeit es ist kein Cholem. Doch kommen wird, sie friert sich spät, die Zeit es ist kein Cholem. Ich hör das Lied von Liebe, Fried, die mächtige Gesangen. Und jeder Ton von Lied sagt an, die Sonne ist aufgegangen. Und jeder Ton von Lied sagt an, die Sonne ist aufgegangen.
There's another verse.
Is there another
Is that
verse?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, did we lose it?
I'm not. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll show you the
Can you
meaning.
Yeah,
anyway.
show us the third verse.
I
Yeah.
will sing you. I'll sing you the third verse. How's that?
Oh, fabulous. Even better.
Es eckt die Nacht, die Welt erwacht, voll Hoffnung, Lust und Streben. Du hörst in Luft, das Stimme ruft, zu Glück und Fried und Leben. Du hörst in Luft, das Stimme ruft, zu Glück und Fried und Leben.
Beautiful.
Low tech always wins.
I love it. Well, you know what I love about that? I mean, that song reminds me of the ways that songs have been used to motivate, to inspire, you know, even to lead people to, you know, to like motivate and inspire people to protest against things that that are wrong in the world, you know, the injustices in the world. I mean, that song is a beautiful kind of song of hope, for change, right? Hope for a beautiful life. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And when you think back, when you think about cradle songs, for example, cradle songs, not the kitschy ones that we think of, but the cradle songs that are coming from the heart of a mother to an infant who is not understanding words, perhaps. And so the people singing to a baby may be singing to themselves, singing songs of hope for that child and for that generation, moving beyond whatever struggles or poverty or illness may be surrounding the singer at the time. So all of that music is packed into our personal DNA, and it helps us use song to really move us forward in the world.
Oh, that's so true. And I think often as adults, we refer back to those moments, you know, or those songs have new meaning for us finally, you know, as we think about them as adults. Yeah. Now you have another song to share.
Thank you. I have another short song. And this is a song that has resonance also from the past and great power in the present. This is a song that was composed by Hirsch Glick. Glick was a partisan fighter in the forests outside of Vilnius. And he was very young. He was only 22 when he was murdered in Estonia, but he wrote astonishing poetry and songs. This song for me, Das Zangel, the cornstalk, this has such beauty in its imagery and alliterative poetry. Even if you don't understand the words, the sound, the musicality of the words is just astonishing. And there is a cinematic quality when you understand the words, because it's a love song. So there are voices of two lovers and a narrator. And then there's this cinematic sweep of the sunset and the moon rising like a sailing ship and pulling the stars over the heads of the lovers. The most astonishing song about this song, Das Zangel, is the situation in which it was composed. Hirsch Glick, at the time in his 20s, was working in forced labor, digging peat with a group of men, each of whom had been torn away from family and homes. And here he was in the midst of this starvation diet and great, terrible hard work, and he was able to pull from his heart and share a song of such transcendent beauty that it's hard to turn away from the song itself. It is astonishing. And although when I sing it a cappella, I sing it very quietly and very slowly, but Michael Winograd took this melody, he found a musical voice for it that really transcends time and space. So thank you for listening to Das Zangel by Hirsch Glick.
Blond bist du wie ein Sangel, schön wie der Sonnenvergang, für mich durch Berg und Tal und ich dich noch einmal, bis wir werden sich scheiden und wird es sein beim Scheiden in rosischige Beiden, Lippen wie Merlach, Augen voll Trälach und besser gar nicht reden. Mädelt mein Verlangen in Rosensonnenvergang. Schwör mir beim Sonnenschein, als du wirst meine sein. Und sie hat ihm geschworen. Und sie hat ihm geschworen. Purpur ist geworden. Purpur wie der Verlang, Purpur wie Sonnenvergang, hinter die blonde Korn. Der Zweifel klang, lässt sich der Sonnenvergang und in die Himmeln tief, die Levona als Segelschiff ist schon herausgegangen. Ist sie sind noch gegangen und Stern ausgehangen. Und Stern über die zwei und Bäume zwischen sie stehen wie Hupperstangen.
I love that the reference to the wedding canopy at the end too. That's so great. I mean, so first of all, it's a love song, but it's a love song in the Jewish tradition of the wedding, of the hupa, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Yeah. So it really places it in a cultural context too.
It's true. It pulls a lot together, and it's a love song written in extremis. So the context is inextricable from the meaning of the song and makes it even more astonishing in its beauty.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Well, thank you. And then I think you were gonna share a little bit of one of my favorites.
I could do that now, or I could do it now. Sure. So this is a little snippet that Amy requested. This is a very, very old song that is, it is an anonymous poet wrote this song. It's in the style of some Russian Jewish poets, but it was never found among the writings of these poets. So we don't know exactly who wrote it. It's a story also that comes from another time and another place, but it is as relevant as we care to make it, because it says that this poor man, the bits that I'll share with you, this poor man has nothing, and yet he brings home to his children, what does he bring them? Nothing less than the entire inverted bowl of the heavens. And this man, he sings and talks in riddles and in parables, and he says, look at this world. This world is a fabulous carousel, a beautiful wonder. But the problem is the musicians haven't quite gotten it right. And that's exactly where we are today, my friends. We haven't quite gotten it right yet.
Right.
So I will sing this song for you. Fort mein Vetter von Jarid, hat sich so Dremel, während bunte Palaz wird seine Wand mit Schimmel. Und vor die Kinderlech bringt das Teller auf den Himmel. Und vor die Kinderlech bringt das Teller von Himmel. Es ist die Welt ein schönes Spiel, sagt mein Vetter Elje. Es ist die Welt ein feines Spiel, a ważne Karuselje. Nur die Klezmer teugen nicht, es teugnet die Kapelle. Nur die Klezmer teugen nicht, es teugnet die Kapelle.
Thank you. So obviously the song is much longer than that, but those are two precious verses for you that you shared. Thank you so much. So Jess just put Susan's website in the chat. If you want to go to her website, you'll see that Susan is also quite an amazing artist. And you can see images of her work, and you can gain access to where to find her CDs, which are really beautiful. So thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciated your thought and everything that went into that. That was wonderful. So we've heard about music as a form of faith. We've heard about music that reinforces community. We've heard about lullabies. We've heard about romantic songs, love songs. Now let's move to the Balkans, where they kind of mix all of that up, right? Into this is a region that where kind of music facilitates joy and cultural identity through dancing. So Mike Furjanic is a singer and also plays the fiddle and the preem for a local tamburaši group called Sviraj, which means play on. And it's not play on, it's play on. It's a command, not a request, because in this culture, and you know, Mike, you have great stories about this growing up, and people just dancing, and you play until 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or the next morning, right? So So there's 4 members in Sviraj, and they all play traditional tamburaši instruments. And Mike will talk a little bit about those instruments. They've been performing in our region, well, since they were pups, I think, in some cases. Well, Mike, you said you had a fiddle put in your hand when you were, what, 7 or something? So he's going to share a couple songs with us. I think the first one is Stani Moma. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
No, you got it. That's good.
All right,
Good.
all right. And Jess just put the website for Sviraj in the chat where you can see videos of them performing. They're a total joy to watch performing because it's really clear they're having an awful lot of fun together. So Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about this song, or we can play it first, whichever works for you.
Well, no, I'll talk a little bit about it. It's called Stani Mome, which means get up, my dear. This song is about a guy's telling his lover to, get up. I want to see you dance. You're so beautiful. Life is short. And I want to have some fun before I die, which is a common theme in the Balkans. It was traditionally a very poor region. And a lot of people were serfs, traditionally, historically. And there developed this sort of culture where, life's pretty bad, but hey, today we're going to have some fun. And a lot of songs reflect that. So maybe you want to just play a minute over or 2, maybe not even 2 minutes, just get the point across here and we'll.
And I'll put the lyrics in the chat. So you can see that they're actually you're playing at a
what that actually was the after party to a folk festival that I play at generally once a year. They have formal concerts for 2 days, but in the evenings they have a dance like you saw that, and that was the Sunday afternoon following the whole thing. They call it the Survivor Party. So anyways, that was Stani Mome. You saw Sviraj playing it. I was obviously holding a violin. You could see some of the instruments were in the tambura family. I'll spell that for whoever's taking notes. Tambura. It's no, not the V, U. Tamb is a boy. Okay. This is the smallest one. It takes the lead. I play this guy. Then we have one that you saw Donnie playing a rhythm instrument that kind of sort of a guitarish, keeps the time. That's what gives this music its particular sound, that offbeat. It's more percussive than it is a chord. So anyways, that's the instrumentation. We have a bass. There is a tambura bass, but for convenience, a regular classical bass is much smaller. Dancing. You saw the people with their particular dance step. It's the steps are, where your feet are going before you move. It's that kind of a thing. The dance is structured. We learned that from little on up. Most of us learned to dance. Are we good? Most of us learned to dance before we learned to play. because you got to feel that rhythm. It really is a joy to see when you have a room full of people know those dances and they're all moving together on the same step, and the colo just moves around just like perfect, like a planet in rotation. That being a good lead in to something I'd like to talk about, could we have a little bit of the next colo? The lado.
These are, just so colos are is the dance style, right? That line.
Correct.
Yeah,
Colo means
so
wheel.
people know. Yeah.
Colo means
what?
wheel. Wheel. Circle.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that'll get the point across there. That is what we call that particular one is Graino. Okay, this guy Graia had his own version of that. Okay, everybody that plays in a tambura band is expected to have their own version of that particular song. I do it different on the preem than I do it on the violin. But the step to that is the very basic malo step. It's right 2 3 kick, left 2 3 kick, right 2 3 kick, left 2 3 kick. That will get people into the colo, and this is where the whole cultural and connection thing comes down. You can stand there and go step 2 3 kick, step 2 3 kick, or you can fancy it up. Okay, when I was discussing this program with a colleague of mine, he said, this is the one you want to talk about. When you're next to my sister in this colo, her feet are going in all directions and she's, just killing it. But you will also see a grandmother or an aunt bring a toddler or a child into this colo and start to teach them the basic 1 2 3 step. And when everybody's on that step, it doesn't matter how good you are as far as intricate. But the whole colo will still move together. In other words, the toddler won't slow my sister down when she's really tearing into it. So it's really something to see, and it really does. I remember my aunts taking me into that colo and showing me those steps. And like I said, you learn to dance before you learn to play and sing. That's how it was in our little culture down there still. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I know it felt to me like that song got a little faster and faster and faster.
He's up. Yes.
So I think it also feels like it's kind of creating some confidence as the dancers get used to that step. They can do it faster and faster and faster. And then maybe they can start to.
Not to talk over you, I'm sorry, but everybody starts that step doing the 1 2 3 kick. And then as the colo goes a little longer, you start showing off. And if you took notice, and this was a question in the last interview and some of the suggestions, I'll bring this point up. That colo has a very distinctive start. The bump, 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 bump. Okay. If you're playing that, you're going to see the crowd just come running. And as soon as they hear that, they're going to jump up because they want to get in there. It's kind of like a lead in, like, hey, pay attention. We're about to do it, So that's kind of how that works.
Well, and it seems to me, in the conversations I've had with you in the past, that there are colos that you play that are even associated with particular individuals, right? When somebody walks in the room, now you've got to play this colo
Yeah.
because they're in the room. Yeah.
Well, if it's a friend of yours, if it's someone you don't like, you may ignore it. But
Ignore it.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, there's ones
Yeah.
I'll play for my sister, or if I see a cousin in the room, you know, I know she likes to dance that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then what kind of feedback do you get from the dancers about how you're doing as musicians?
Well, the first thing is, you know, and I told you this the other day, when I hear women scream, they do a certain, in our culture, it's called yuyukane, which is like, "Eeyo," kind of a yell.
Oh.
And when I hear them doing that, and they can't resist, it has to happen. They just, you know, so I know I'm doing my job when I hear that. And more to your point, really, we play to the floor. We play to the room. If we see a certain step is, you know, got 30 people dancing it as opposed to 10, we'll circle back to that in a little while. And you can kind of tell by your audience and by where you're playing. I know if I'm playing for a Croatian room as opposed to a Serbian one, I'm going to do a few more of these kind, a few more of that kind. So, you know, but any musician will tell you, you play to your audience, and, you know, they're going to respond.
Yeah. Well, and I remember Donnie telling a story about, is it his Tata that would come in and she'd be in the circle and she'd look at you all, or she'd look at him and like, that's too fast or that's too slow.
Right.
And that's just right. Just
Well,
this like little side look, like you get that a lot.
They'll let you know if you're going too slow or too fast.
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
that the colo is filled with everything from toddlers to grandmothers. So
Yeah, you'll see all kind of people out there, and everybody has their own particular step they want to show off sometimes. It really is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So now you have one more tune to play for us that is special to you. Can you talk a little bit about it, or do you want to play it first?
No, why don't we just play it a little bit? Maybe a verse or two. That'll get the point across.
Okay, and I'm going to put the lyrics in the chat,
Okay.
the translation. Not hearing it?
Yeah.
Let's try again.
It's still on mute.
Do you have your audio, computer audio on too?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not working. I'm sorry, it's not working for some reason. I apologize.
I have it. I don't think I have it. Oh, let's see. Oh, you know what? I might have it. Let me see if I can grab the, oh, here, let's try this. Let's see if I can do this. Let me first go to, I'm going to try sharing screen. Let's see if I can do it. Not that one. Why is it showing up on my share screen? Okay, I am going to make this work. I am determined to make this work. Here it is. But I think I need, before I can play it, I need to share sound. Okay, let's see if this works. Huh. It's playing. Can you hear it?
I don't hear it. That's strange.
That is really weird because it's playing on my screen, but I can't hear it. I have share sound on. Do I have to mute me? What am I sharing? Technical sharing.
Okay, well, I think everybody gets the point. You know what I mean? You ever heard it?
I'm so sorry. I
Well,
actually
no, it's fine.
it's playing. I can see it like moving along, but I'm not hearing anything.
Don't
So
worry. Everybody got the feel for the melody just there and the style. So we can talk about it now. Without hearing it, it wouldn't make any sense. That's
Yeah.
part of music, right? You have to hear it
Okay.
sit there and talk about it all day. But so everybody's heard the beat, the feel, the style of singing. Okay. That is muy dobera. It is it means like my dear in like a Croatian Bosnian dialect. The song is from Bosnia, as we would say in English, and it's in a style called sevda, Sevdah. And sevda is all about, and I hate to use these cliche phrases, but it's all about unrequited love. And the tune is, my dear, where are you wandering tonight? Why didn't you come and see me? Are you with another woman right now? In this particular version, I would rather have you sick than with somebody else, and you come to see me and we'll be together forever, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
My mom recorded that with a folklore group that we had at the Croatian church in Stilton. Some years after the immigrants came here, they formed a folklore group. And it was led actually by our parish priest, who was a Franciscan monk from Bosnia. Okay, this is the record it was on, and they were called Club Marian.
Mhm.
And that's because it was, when this was started, the Pope had declared a Marian year, which was dedicated to the Blessed Mother. And you can see, excuse me, the costumes people are wearing, and they're simulating dancing a kola. And that happens to be my mom right there, playing that sort of guitar kind of instrument. She played that too, but her main thing was the violin.
Mhm.
So she sang that, and some years after she died, Mike, that became her song. You know, everybody, you know, oh, that song she did on that recording. You know, it was a small town full of, you know, locals. But some years after she died, my cousin was in the folklore group, and she and my mom were close. And she wanted to do the song. So she performed it in the shows that the Cola group would do. And that became kind of her song. All right. And then some years after that, when I joined Sviraj, at some point, one of the guys heard a version of this from Europe. And he says, hey, isn't that the one your mom used to do? And I says, yeah. She wants to do it. I said, all right. So we do it a little bit different. Mainly because we're guys, but you know, it's been kicked around for a long time now. And actually, I have another cousin on my mom's side of the family. He performs that. He's out in a very good tambura band in Pittsburgh. So I guess the point of this is, a lot of this stuff has been handed down to us. Even some of the older songs that came off the boat with the, you know, my great grandparents and my grandparents, and and other people in Stilton as well. That picture I held up with the record cover, those were local guys that I learned songs from, and a lot of them were some of the musicians were even at my parents' wedding. They were all pretty close, and there was this culture in Stilton where this music and the focus around our church held us all together. And it's been 100 and some years, and I still speak a little Croatian. We still hold our annual church picnics based around our holidays, and this music is always there. I had a 21st birthday party for my niece last week. Okay. And at 21, you figure the kids are going to want to, at that age, they're going to want to hear modern music and this and that. But no, we listen to this kind of stuff. Some of it more modern than others, but we mix it up. We'll hear the old song, then we'll hear the newer one coming over, stuff like that. So there actually is this sort of tradition, and it is a very big part of the glue that holds us together, even though people don't live in Stilton anymore. But when we get together, it's there.
That's great. So, and I think, one of the stories I love is that even during COVID, when the Serbian church does an annual picnic every year, and they couldn't do it during COVID. So what they did is they made the food, and people drove by and just picked up the Serbian food or the Croatian food that they wanted. But there were you guys out there playing for all the cars driving by. And I just thought that was, the continuity of that is just really wonderful. And the fact that there's your mom's song, or somebody, the particular songs, I think is also how we associate songs with certain people.
Yeah.
Is pretty special. So thank you. And I apologize for the tech. I realize that with the setup I have here, I can't hear when I share sound. So I didn't think you guys could hear it. So that's why I cut it off sooner. We can play it at the very end as the closing if we want.
The age of Zoom, nothing to get worried about. Everybody's relaxed now.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate you joining us tonight too and sharing some of your stories. As I said, Sviraj has several CDs, and you can access the CDs as well as there's quite a few videos on that website of yours that's pretty cool to look at too. So let's bring all three of you back together. I just have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask all of you to think about and answer. And the first one is, I'm curious if you remember a key moment in your life when a song really touched you and you realized the power of that music to move you in some way. Do any of you have a story about that? A time when music when you realized that, I don't know. Yeah, Susan?
Yes, two very brief memories. One is that I remember learning a song, Arbeiterfrauen, Working Women, which is a song, an organizing song that spanned the oceans more than 100 years ago during the Bundist activity period. And when I learned the song, I was absolutely stunned because I never knew grandparents, and the idea that my grandmothers and my great-grandmothers might have been labor organizers and that I'm standing on their shoulders, it was so astonishing that I ran out the door and I ran up the block to another person's house. I said, "You have to hear this because I can't hold it in."
Oh, wow, that's great.
So that was one thing. And then another time, I'm a visual artist also, and I often learn I learn the poetry of songs before I learn the melodies, and I paint them. I try to bring the song into myself by developing it visually. And I did this with one particular song, and I had a small display at a summer program I was doing up the Hudson Valley. And one night I came by, and there was a family standing in front of this painting, 4 generations, an elder in his 90s, and his son and his son and his baby son, so 4 generations, and they were standing in front of this painting and they were singing it because I had painted the words and they were singing this song and I nearly passed out. It was so touching.
Wow. That's really cool. That's not only the power of song, but the power of art, right? That in them. Wow, that's really great. Wow. Yeah. Mr. MacFarland, do you have do you remember a time when you realized the power of music in your life?
Yeah, I kind of remember the song that I sang was the first song that I sang was Amazing Grace. And I had sang it with the group and I went home to visit my parents. And little did I know that they were filming and what have you. So they asked me to sing Amazing Grace, and they were filming it and they went all over the city. And I didn't realize that it was being filmed, right? But that was a moment for me at that time, right? Because had I known it was going to be on television, I probably would have been a little bit nervous, right? But as it turned out, everything worked out. You know, I did the song. You know, that was my first experience with television and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my concrete moment right there that I experienced, and I realized, you know, that Amazing Grace was one of the songs that, you know, that God chose me to sing. So it was one of the songs. So that's what I did.
That's great. How about you, Mike? Is there a moment in your life when a song really hit you?
Oh, all the time. I mean, I grew up in a house where music played around until we went to bed. You know, whoever had to do the dishes got to pick the music they listened to. It was always on. You know, my mom was a musician, cool. Dad was a musician. It was just there was always something playing, and my parents were pretty open-minded about it. I mean, they would let me blast rock and roll. You know, they were Eastern folk European band too, but they would, if the kids, as long as we were listening to music, they didn't really care what it was. But I mean, being in a band and stuff, I've seen the power of music. I've seen people in wheelchairs that are severely Alzheimer's and whatever, and their feet start going when we play. And then I've seen the bad power of music too. You know, I tell people, you have to, in our line of work, you got to know what songs not to sing. You got to, you know what I mean? Because sometimes people will request a war song from us from World War II or the last Balkan War or something like that, and then we have to go. What now, fella? Come on, and that's crazy. Now we're at church. Who's going to sing that here? But I've seen fights break out over it. I mean, music is a very powerful thing. And I like, not to sound cliche, I try to only use my powers for good. As a quick example, I was playing a picnic nearby here, and I wanted to do a Bosnian song for a guy who was recently from Bosnia. And this is back, you know, right after the war, when Yugoslavia broke up. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And by dumb luck, I had no idea. It's just a general, I like Bosnia song. And he came over and he pulled his shirt open and he said, that's a Muslim song. A Muslim put a bullet hole through me. And I apologized. I said, I had no idea that this was a particularly Muslim song. I mean, because Croatians love it. They dance to it. So Catholics, I mean, so, I mean, it can be, you know what I mean? It's powerful. It will reduce a grown man to tears. It will, you know, make a toddler dance. It will make a senile person dance. It will do all sorts of things. And you can have, you know, Croatians and Serbs can be the worst enemies, but they'll put their arms around each other and sing a song that they both like. That's what I'll say about that.
I'm so glad you brought that up because the power of song is that it can move people, and it can, it can move people in way, like, well, it can bring you to tears in a very emotional way, but it also can motivate people to riot, right?
Absolutely.
Or motivate
Yeah.
people to fight. I mean, people use songs to motivate warriors.
Right.
So yeah, so this whole idea of the power of music, whether it's the lyrics and the words or whether it's actually the tune and the chord structure, I mean, I think that's really interesting too. There are some songs that doesn't, like some of you, both of you in particular, Susan and Mike, have, you sing in another language that I don't even know but I'm moved by the music, even if I don't know the language, and I think that's really interesting too. It's just so powerful.
Well, in our American pop culture, or British, depending on where this band is from, I don't know, but just think about that old 80s tune. That's What I Like About You. That was, I forget the name of the band. It wasn't the Ramones. The Secrets or something like that.
About you.
Yeah,
That
when
one?
you hear
Yeah.
those opening chords, you got to run to the dance floor. You
Yeah.
can't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with your colos. And the fact that people recognize particular colos and then run up there.
Oh, yeah.
To dance those colos. Yeah. So there's a question from MT who says, what is an enjoyable, memorable live concert each of the singers and moderator have seen? That's a tough one because I don't think I could pick one.
Are you saying in my particular
Any
area?
of you? Yeah, I don't know. I think that this person is asking about not your music, but other concerts that you've seen that have been really powerful. Yeah.
Pretenders 1982 at the Forum in Harrisburg. That's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And right up there with it, I saw the B-52s at the Sirius Mosque and danced the whole night. It was, those two bands really put on a show. I mean, if it can be open to anything, I'll say that. Yeah.
You're muted, Susan.
Joni Mitchell's Court at Spark in the 70s. I did not sleep for 3 nights after that concert. Truly, I thought it was an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, that's good. I'm trying to think for me. I have to say, I was thinking about when I first realized how powerful music was. I think I was 12 and my parents took me to an outdoor classical music symphony concert. And my body wanted to get up and dance to that classical music. I could just feel it in my body that I needed to do pirouettes and spins and stuff like that. I mean, the music just like got into me so much. I remember that. But I also have been to some pretty powerful, I'm trying to think. Yeah. How about you, Jimmy MacFarland? Do you have a good concert that really moved you? No. Did you disappear? Oh, he's taking a break. So, Pink Floyd. In the 90s, I was at a Pink Floyd Animal. I think it was Animal. No, it was Dark Side of the Moon. That blew me away. It totally blew me away. Yeah. So I'm curious. Well, do you guys have any questions for each other?
Yeah. Is Old World Folk Band, they're not playing anymore? Susan?
Well, we're out of shape. Still love each other very much.
I get it.
But as we discovered decades ago, our band has always functioned more as a social network than a musical network. So when called upon, we may actually get ourselves together, but we're sort of, in the last year and a half, 2 years, there really hasn't been anything to play for. So
Yeah.
we don't know.
I was really impressed with your violin player when I saw him some years ago.
Stanley, he was one of a kind.
Yeah.
We called him a legend in his own mind.
I got a question. What language is that you were singing in?
Oh, I was singing these songs in Yiddish.
Yiddish. Okay, I thought it was
Yiddish.
Yiddish. I wasn't sure.
It's an Eastern European Jewish language. It really has its inception in Middle High German of the Rhine River Valley about 1,000 years ago. But as the people forced and moved further east, it picked up a lot of Balkan influence, Romance languages, and of course, wherever Jews put down roots, the language morphed. So a lot of English influence in this country, but that's people who speak and understand very old Middle High German, like the Old Order Amish. Understand Yiddish, except for those that percentage of words that come right from the sacred Hebrew. They understand the structure of most of the rest of the
That's
language.
very interesting.
Yeah. So Mac, somebody had asked in the chat about a concert that you might have attended, any of you, and Mike and Susan already answered, but that you might have attended that was really memorable or powerful for you.
Not pretty much all of them was pretty powerful. Yeah, I can't remember one particular one.
Yeah.
Not right off the top of my head, I can't.
Yeah.
But pretty much all our concerts were enjoyable. Again, we used to end with the dip, and everybody loved that. For whatever reason, they loved it. They would get up and we would dip around the room.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I think this question was about a concert that you saw that wasn't your group, but in other words, musical influences, like a group, that you saw that's not Spiritual Messengers, but a different group that really moved you.
And growing up, I used to, like I said, my uncle was a gospel singer. He had a group, and he used to bring in different gospel groups from all over. And one of the groups, it was a couple of groups that I remember that influenced me that I liked were the Five Blind Boys from Alabama.
That's it.
Yeah, and the Five Blind Boys from Mississippi, and the Soul Stirrers. They were all on the same program.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was amazing to me to see somebody blind. They would put their hand on the shoulder and they would walk down the aisle. They would be singing that song. I was like,
wow.
So I was so impressed with that. And then I got a chance to see the great Sam Cooke when he was singing with the Soul Stirrers. And I would be on the front row again. My uncle he would bring them in. And little did I know that I would be singing stuff, but that was some of the things that really, really impressed me as I was going, being able to see some of those stars at that time.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the Five Blind Boys from Alabama, because when I was trying to think of an answer for myself, what is that group from Alabama that I saw at the Michigan Folk Festival? What is the name of that group? And that's who it was. And I went with my parents. And my dad was in a jazz band when he was in his late teens and early 20s. And, he went with me to this Michigan Folklife Festival in Lansing. This was probably 25 years ago. And the two of us just stood there with our jaws dropped, listening to the Five Blind Boys from Alabama. And I remember my dad just sitting there being so, he went out and bought their CDs. He was so moved by them. So yeah, I'm glad you remembered that name. That's great.
Yeah, they were really good.
They were great. Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if we have any other questions from the audience. If you all have questions, feel free to turn on your videos and ask a question of these three fabulous musicians. I just want to say thank you to all three of you. I'm so impressed by that you all are just like right here, and it's just so amazing that we have this talent right here in our own little hometown. So
Oh, flattery will
you.
get you everywhere.
It's true. It's true.
Actually, while we're waiting for questions to come in, can I just throw a little aside out here about
Absolutely.
my hometown of Steelton? And Mr. Mack may find this interesting. Steelton had a tradition of gospel singing. For example, my mother, who everybody saw in the picture, she grew up next to a woman named Gloria Spencer, who was on the gospel circuit right next door. And then at the end of the street I grew up in, coming down the hill, was a tiny little church called the Enhot Church of God. And when they would start singing, the neighborhood kids would just go down. I mean, we didn't go in because we were Catholics, you know, that you just didn't go to a different church. But we would go down near the place and sit on the curb and listen to them sing. And, you know, and it was so different than what we had. It was, you know, we had this big church organ and we sang hymns, and most of them were in Croatian in my church, you know, very European style thing. And then we'd sit there and hear this church. I don't believe they had an organ, but you could hear rhythm instruments going and singing, and everybody, all the kids would just sitting there going, you know. So that's in this area as well.
Yeah,
it was always something. And actually my grandmother had one next to her, and we'd sit on the porch and listen. It was, you know, in Steelton you were exposed to everything, I guess is my point. But
yeah.
It was really striking, the differences and the similarities. And, you know, we just, man, it's music. Sit here and listen to it. It's beautiful. It was really nice.
You know, Mike, what that reminds me of is Bill Rebeck before he passed.
Oh, did you know Bill? Yeah.
And he also had this deep Croatian music in his bloodstream, but he had so much experience with other musical styles. He was such a wide open, loving musician.
Oh, yeah.
It was a pleasure to sing with him.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I knew Bill. I taught his daughter some music in the Cole group. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Mike, you were you played in the Cola group, but then were you also a lead in the dance, in the Colo dance circle?
Well, you know, when you're a kid and you're in the group, you have to dance. You know what I mean? Especially boys, because there's never enough boys in a group like that. But I preferred to play, but they would make me dance because, you know, I could do it without tripping over my feet. I was a little bit of a jock. So, and some of those steps, especially like the Russian and the Ukrainian steps, are wild. So, but I actually got away from it for a little while. When I got back into music, they asked me would I come and teach music to the kids. So my job was basically music director. I taught a bunch of kids music and then organized the music for their concerts and shows and whatnot.
Nice, yeah. You know, one of the things I was thinking about when I was listening to your music was especially, you know, somewhere down the line when we were playing that, like there's such a natural harmonic that goes along with that song. And, you know, Sviraj, when the four of you sing and you harmonize with each other, you know, I think those harmonies also really, I don't know, they pluck at your heartstrings too. And I think when you can sing along and join in singing, you know, kind of harmonizing along, I think it also creates that sense of belonging or participation or ownership even. You know, I know sometimes if I'll sing along to a song and I try to harmonize, I don't have a good voice, but I sing in the shower, right? But when I harmonize these songs, it makes me like, it gives me a sense of ownership with this song. You know, I think that's, I don't know if is that pervasive or is that just me being weird?
No, harmonies are very important. Very important. But here again, it's orchestration for your voices too. Sometimes you don't want it, and then the harmony comes in and makes it striking, and then sometimes the harmony drops out and becomes even more striking.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, Mr. Mac is the lead guy when he throws it out there first, and then the other guys come in after. It's the dynamic of the orchestration, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Which I think gets to, one of the last questions I had, which is, how do you choose the songs that you perform? When do you know that you have a gem? When do you know that you've, and when you're practicing, although I know Sviraj believes that practice is what, groups break up when they rehearse, right? So, so I know you guys don't rehearse, but when you
we do.
Yeah, I know. I just love that idea that you play so kind of organically together that rehearsal can stint that a little bit, right? So, and in your case, you talk a lot about sort of your relationship to the audience, but I think this idea of like knowing when you have a gem, like when knowing, oh man, this is the song. This is a song that's going to really do. What's it going to do? I'm really interested in that.
As soon as you hear it.
Yeah. So what is it you're like? Yeah. As soon as you hear it, right?
Yeah,
and it might not move somebody else. It might only move you.
No, I know it's going to work.
So, yeah. How do you know it's going to work?
I anticipated this question. I think we may have even talked about it. When you're driving around in your car and a song comes on the radio and you go, what is that? I never heard that before. That's how it works. Just like that. It's nothing special. We're all human. We all hear it. Yeah. You guys, what do you think?
Well, a lot of what I do these days is a cappella singing. So I build a program around whatever the organization or the need is. So I do storytelling with my singing. So I actually just choose from all of these songs that I know, and I build them so that there's an arc.
Nice. Yeah, that story. When there's a story.
Because it's not in English. And the other thing is I have a background as a sign language interpreter. So I'm always in this mode of communicating and using space in a way that is typical in the structure of American Sign Language, but that most people don't use in daily conversation. So that really puts me into the narrator's voice or the setting of the song, and I feel it. When I feel it, then I know I can communicate it.
Nice. Thank you. Well, we have a lovely thank you message from Marilyn White. This is the second time hearing you from two previous Zooms. Marilyn is the incoming president of the American Folklore Society, and she's been attending many of our Zoom sessions, both as AFS sponsored ones and Susquehanna Folk sponsored ones. So she says, and of course I'm back again, looking forward to hearing you again in the future. Maybe some of you might be at AFS meeting, which is happening in October in Harrisburg. So I will make sure I get you information about that. Meek, I think you guys are playing for the Saturday night closing party. But anyway, then Marilyn says, this has been so wonderful hearing great music and hearing your discussion of the music and your influences. And then capital letters love she's sending. So I agree. And I want to thank you, all three of you. This has been really fun. It's been fun to plan this with you and fun to chat with you about your music and about what moves you. So I think we've covered an awful lot of ways that music is powerful, that songs are powerful, from lullabies to protest songs to romances to dancing to faith to just about in every way, right? So, and thank you to all of you for joining us in the audience. I really appreciate that. And I especially want to thank Jess, Hayden, and Hank Imhoff, who were our behind the scenes tech crew, helping to get our music up and running and helping to kind of run the tech scene. So Jess has posted the link to the meetings for the American Folklore Society. If any of you are interested, it's really a great opportunity to talk about traditional music, to talk about traditions, to hear from people around the world that are working with artists, with communities who are sustaining their cultures in many different ways. So I hope that you'll join us there. Anything else, Jess? Do I need to, anything else? Oh, you know what? Let me see if I can pull up that song again and play it properly this time. So I'm going to share screen and go here. Oops, that's not the one. Not that share. I think it's, nope, it's not that one. Here, it's this. I'm going to go back here and then I'm going to do. Okay. Now, are you hearing the music? Oh, good. Okay. See, I can't.
Mooi Dilberet, goed zesje. Zal večeras doći neće. If si dragi volan bio, il djevojku uzljubio. Volim čuti da voluješ. Nek nas dugo mašikuje. Vola nikad ćeš mi doći. U ašiku ni do vijeka.
Okay, that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oops, I'll stop sharing now. Thank you all so much for being here. And thanks again to Jess and Hank and Joe for helping us with our tech.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.